Sabha MP Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who was the first person to raise this issue in Parliament way back in 2007, joins us now. Rajiv, are you surprised that the government has taken so long to figure this out, that there is a misuse of the FDI route in the hospitality sector, and that FDI meant for hotels is actually being used for arbitrage by foreigners who are buying up residential properties and farmers' land?
FDI caps in India are not being enforced or are being loosely enforced. And while it may sound very academic in some sense, but the use of FDI or the bypass of FDI in issues like real estate have a serious impact on many issues, including coastal security, where people are gobbling up land in Goa and other parts of coastal India. So of course, the answer is yes, I'm a bit disappointed that it took so long, but better late than never, as I say.
Rajiv Chandrasekhar, even though the centre is perhaps only now taking this issue up, why has the state, like Goa, not taken this up on its own? After all, land issues fall under the purview of the states.
No, look, the enforcement of any law or regulation requires both the central government and the state government to play its respective roles. There are two aspects to it, as you yourself mentioned in the question. One is the issue of FDI, which is a purely Government of India issue of how the caps are and how these caps are to be enforced and monitored. And the second is the issue, the broader and larger issue, which is outside, which is beyond the FDI issue, which is the issue of land from farmers. And we are hearing in a number of cases, not directly related to FDI alone, where corporates coerce land away from farmers, and that is clearly something that state governments must put a halt to, and that is why you need a new land acquisition policy or land acquisition approach at the state government level.
Right, so joint effort is what is needed, but Rajiv Chandrasekhar, what are the policy steps that the centre and the states need to take to end this kind of misuse?
Look, I think that we need to bring in the concept in India of beneficial ownership. There is no point talking about FDI and ownership restrictions when one level of ownership, which is usually almost always a Benami owner, passes the scrutiny. We have to introduce a concept of beneficial ownership, which is not an unusual concept. It's a concept used in most Western economies, where the owner of the land has to represent legally that he or she is the beneficial owner of the land. And if that representation is found to be false, he basically he suffers the consequences under law. So I think the cure to this is to usher in a concept of beneficial ownership, which will reveal the true owner of the land or true owner of the asset where the FDI restriction is.
While that could be the solution, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, what action should be taken by the centre? Why not cancel the FDI permissions? After all, that's the sort of action that's being taken in other instances like telecom, or at least being considered in other sectors like telecom, or even the Adarsh housing scam. Would you go as far as to say that we should actually look at a cancellation here?
Look, I think, look, I'm not aware of the exact facts of these hotels and these investments as you referred to. But I think a larger principle and a larger point can easily be made in this context, which is when you have an FDI norm and when you have FDI caps, the government must treat it with respect and must make sure that investors also see that this is a very serious issue, and that if there is a violation or if there is an attempt to violate and just meet the letter of it and violate the spirit of it, the government must come down very heavy on them. And if necessary, legislation has to be introduced to make sure that the punitive consequences of violating the FDI caps are very, very severe. If there is no deterrent, then people will merrily flout law. And the objective of the government is to make the law and make the FDI norm and also create the law that deters people from breaking it.
Rajiv Chandrasekhar, since you were the first MP to raise this issue in Parliament, what do you propose to do now, considering the skeletons are falling out of the closet?
No, look, I can only do what I can do, but the media and civil society has a significant role as well to put the spotlight on these issues, and I will do what I have to do, which is raise it in Parliament, meet with the Home Minister, write to the Home Minister, and hopefully create awareness amongst other political parties in Parliament that this is a serious issue. And And you know, giving land ownership, especially in coastal areas, to foreign unknown investors is dangerous in more ways than one.
All right, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, appreciate your time and thanks very much for joining.